And now getting into transitional typefaces. So around the 1700s, these were beginning to really pick up in stride. Fonts like Baskerville use this heavily. They're considered a transitional typeface. Basically, it's when you start to see more precise engineering on the side of actually manufacturing the blocks that would go into printing type on a printing press. They were usually metal instead of wood like they were back in the old style days, and they just had that much more control. So you're going to see a little bit higher contrast in stroke weight. Usually you're getting rid of that whole cupped serif thing that we were talking about with old style typefaces. That's usually how you're going to be able to tell a transitional type versus an old style type. Then modern. So you're going to see modern nowadays mostly in a sense of its delicacy and its precision. It had a very popular use of hairline serifs when these typefaces were first hitting the market. Again, that was around the mid 18th century when you first began sawing these modern typefaces, and it was really just a product of that engineering and that precision just getting sharper and sharper. Paper quality was starting to get a little bit better at that point too. Back in the day when you saw those large serifs, it was typically used as a form of like an ink trap. Basically, really low quality paper isn't going to let the ink for the letters sink all the way in, so they needed extra areas for that ink to settle so it wouldn't look too bad. After a while, when paper started to get so high quality, they didn't really have to worry about that too much, so they were able to use these really thin serifs and they would hold that form after they were printed. So you start seeing typefaces like Did It and stuff. Fashion magazines, you are going to see a modern typeface used 99.9% of the time, along with other just high luxury items. Modern typefaces are really popular for those circumstances. And now into slab serifs. So, slab serifs came about when reading something from a distance was becoming crucial, whether from signage or think Wild West. That's basically what I think of most of the time when I think slab serif, at the very least its original context. That classic wanted sign. Everybody's hunting for this guy. He's wanted dead or alive. That thing's hit smack dab with a slab serif typeface, also known as Egyptian because just of their really structured, solid approach. Still popular to this day, by all means, along with really all of these typefaces. I mean, you haven't really seen too many of them die at this point. Black letter is probably the one that shows up the least amount of time, just because honestly, it's a pain to read most circumstances that you see it used in. So you don't see black letter used all that often. But everything else we've covered, they all have their time and place. We'll get into that a little bit more in the actual user experience of using type as we begin going through more videos that are going to bring up specific circumstances that typography is going to be used in. But sans serif is definitely one of the more popular ones today. I mean, look at any football jersey, any college sport, especially or high school. Slab serifs are like of utmost importance for those. They just have that classic feel to them. Very popular in those circumstances. And then we bring up what we see mostly today, which is simply sans serif typefaces. Basically, sans serif typefaces, they were brought up in late 1800s. Some will say a little bit earlier, but they were first introduced by William Castellan, and their whole purpose was just really low stroke contrast. They were especially popular and still are hugely popular today with like street signage. They were basically the predecessor to those slab serifs. They realized that they didn't need such strong serifs for headlines and things like that in all situations, that they could eliminate that, and as some typographers will put it, it's just kind of getting into the roots of what a typeface is. It's getting rid of all the luxury, all of the extra ornaments, if you will, of like serifs and stroke variation, and it just bringing into what that letter is down to its roots and down to its simplest state, is the nice way of putting it. So that is serif typefaces, and that really about covers most of those general categorizations and classifications of type that we wanted to talk about in this video at least. The one after this, we're going to look at kind of some more open-ended classifications, specifically within Vox's system of classification, which really was used as a form of kind of generalizing and honing in on some of the specific traits that a typeface can have. For instance, it brings up things like humanist and a few other categories of fonts that we'll get into in the video directly after this.